Good morning, App Properties. It's Tuesday, July 28th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amy Corr, and I'm joined by Kevin Van Eck, who's hanging out at the Goose Island office. So let's get going and let's jump into another episode of Coffee with Amy and Kevin.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Amy. Hope everyone has a full mug of coffee ready to get started. We've got a great episode today. We're going to be talking with a broker out of our Gold Coast office about teams, new agents, and what we can do to grow our business. One reminder before we get started, though, make sure to register for tomorrow's Ninja Accelerator session, where we're going to talk about the 5 points of negotiation. Whether you represent buyers or sellers, it's going to be great to talk through all the different ways that we can ensure either our seller is receiving a great offer, or if we're representing a buyer, that we're submitting a great offer, especially in this fast, crazy market with low inventory.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Well, I am super excited to have Paul Blackburn here with us this morning. Not only has Paul been my partner in crime in teaching the perfect listing presentation, but he also heads up the team management for one of our top teams out of our Gold Coast office. So Paul, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Do you have your coffee filled up and ready to go?
I do. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. So Paul, you have a lot of interesting experience as it relates to real estate. In fact, you started pretty early in regards to real estate at about the age of 18. So let's go to the way back. You created, when you were at that age, your own development company. Tell me a little bit more about that.
I did. So, back then it was 2005, real estate was booming, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to jump in. I saw a lot of fun shows on HGTV. So when I was in college, got a loan from my parents and bought my first home in my college town of DeKalb. I went to NIU, did one project, then a second project, and then moved on to the city. So completed a condo conversion in Logan Square, some homes in Oak Park, even some stuff on the south side out in Roseland and the suburb of Homewood-Flossmoor area. And then the market crashed. And let's just say I learned a lot very, very quickly.
So having been in real estate for such a long time and, having gone through that crash, we know that burnout or disenfranchisement with the industry sometimes happens. For you, what continues to excite you about real estate?
Real estate's constantly changing, and that's probably the biggest excitement for me, is that every day is not the same, but every quarter is not the same, every year is not the same. Whether we're talking about, the influence of new technology entering the market, or we're talking about what we're dealing with right now, a global pandemic, there's always a new challenge. And while it can be extremely challenging and it can be a bit irritating, for me, I also do find that exciting. From the burnout factor, I think the most important thing that any broker needs to look at is they have to have a big enough why they're in the business. Your why to be in real estate cannot be, I want to be the number one in the city, or I want to do 500K in GCI or $1 million in GCI this year. It has to be something outside it. So whether it's your family, for me, it's travel. I love to travel. I love to eat and drink really well. Those two things. Those are my obsessions. That's what I'm passionate about. So that's what I rely on. If I've had a really, really rough quarter, whatever the case may be, I know, what? I can always go ahead and take a vacation. I can really enjoy myself, come back refreshed. And for me, that helps me with any sort of burnout.
I think it's so important. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, one of my motivational Mondays was about really finding your why and really kind of understanding kind of why we do what we do, right? Why are we in the grind every day? There's got to be a bigger reason for all of it. So I want to talk a little bit about you and sort of the team that you're in and working with Phil. So Phil Skowron is one of the top luxury agents in the city of Chicago. And I know you've been working in the luxury market as well. And I know that a lot of agents tend to ask, what the differences are when it comes to working with luxury clients in regards to working with clients that might be at more modest or average price points. So what are your thoughts on that?
It's a great question, and it's something that not just people in the business ask me, but I've had friends and family ask me, really, what is it like to work with that higher end clientele? And to be quite honest, there really is not that much of a difference. Sometimes the hardest transactions I've had have been those first-time home buyers, have been those lowest price points. Sometimes they're the most tedious. And those are also people where, every dollar really does count and it makes a huge difference in their life. So sometimes with those smaller transactions, there is more stress on me as a broker. On the luxury end of things, I would say the one thing that is different or is really important for a broker to know, you have to know your craft. You have to know it well. You know, these people who are at these higher price points are more than likely heads of their industry. This is what they do. They're phenomenal at whatever it is that they do, or they have people that are great at what they do and give them that information every single day. So you have to know your numbers. You have to know your stats. If you're talking about, you know, the Waldorf building or 9 Walton or Trump, and they're asking you questions about price per square foot or average market times in these buildings or the layouts, you have to know the stuff like the back of your hand, because in their industry, in their business, that is what they're used to. That is exactly what they're going to expect from you. So you have to make sure you know that.
That's great. Really good insight, because a lot of times we psych ourselves out with how different those luxury clients might be, when in fact, really it's just, like you say, knowing your craft and understanding our trade. So part of your role on this team is that you are mentoring and coaching new and newer agents that join the team. And one of the questions I had was, what are the things you find yourself repeating? You know, what do you have on autopilot when you have a newer agent that you're coaching? What do you find yourself saying over and over again to each one of those people?
You know, there's a handful of things. If I had to break it down like the top 2 or 3, first and foremost, consistency. Whatever it is you do, whether it's a marketing plan, sending out flyers, email blasts, whatever it is you do it with consistency. And I think that's first and foremost. I think a lot of newer agents try something and it doesn't work right away. So then they drop it and they go on to something else. And they never find something that really works because they never really gave it that full effort. So if you're going to do something, go all the way and be consistent. Next, communication. Communication with your clients is absolutely vital. Even if you're not working with them right now, if they're a past client or they could potentially be a future client a year or 2 years from now, just over communicate. If you think your communication is okay, you're not doing the right thing. If you feel like you're over communicating, perfect. It's exactly what you want. So stay in constant contact with your clients. And this is not just with like an email blast or sending out a flyer. It's with the text messages, with phone calls. It's actually building that relationship. You have to do that from the beginning. Really important. And then lastly, I always talk about value. We have to provide value with anything we give to our clients. So posting stuff on Instagram about your recent sale is awesome, but it's not providing any value to your clients. You have to look at, what am I putting out there on social media? What am I sending to my clients? What am I communicating to my clients? Am I providing them with some sort of value? So those are kind of like the 3 things. If you kind of use that as like your baseline with your marketing, with the way you approach the business, I think that's going to really help set up any new agent or even kind of any seasoned agent, for success. So those are the 3 things I kind of harp on a lot.
I love those because they're really quite accurate and, really will pay off if people focus on them. And I know, let's talk a little bit more about teams. I know you've observed teams, but really quite honestly, you really helped Phil Skowron manage the team that you guys have. And so I know you've seen a lot of different team structures. You probably have looked at your own team dynamics to see what's been the most successful and what really works to grow agents that come onto the team. You know, if somebody comes to you and asks you how to build the best team, based on your experience, what would you tell them?
Oh, great question. So first, I'll start off by telling you like how we're structured, because each team is structured really differently. We built our team organically. Our managing broker, Wayne Collins, at the time had a couple new brokers that wanted to join ad, but only wanted some sort of back-end additional support. They wanted to be on a team. So we had approached Phil and said, they're younger agents like yourself, would you be willing to take them on? And Phil said, that's just really not my forte. I'm awesome at working with my clients. I'm awesome at teaching them. I don't think I'd be great at teaching new agents, but Paul on my team seems to enjoy doing that. If he's willing to take that on, then sure, we'll bring them onto the team. That's how we started. And our growth has kind of just been a bit organic, from there, where people have just referred us new agents. We have some overflow business that we give to newer agents that come on the team. But for the most part, we just kind of help foster the growth of each individual agent's business, provide them some sort of support that they need. They can advertise their group name, which definitely helps them if they're newer. That's how our team is set up. For those brokers that are looking to start a team, I think the first question they have to ask themselves is, why do I want a team? What is the need that you're trying to fill by having a team? That's first and foremost. A lot of people want the team just for the added revenue. A lot of them want the team because it looks cool to say I have 8 or 10 or 12 people under me or something like that. But you have to understand that with that team comes a great deal of responsibility. When I first started in the business, I was not at Properties. I was at a smaller brokerage, and it was in the middle of the financial crisis. And it was a very dark time in the industry. It was a very, very dark time for me personally. And it wasn't easy. I had no one to lean on. And I knew that if I were to ever get into any kind of mentorship or management role, I was going to do the exact opposite of what I had at that point. And I think it's really important for team leaders to recognize that the ability for the people on your team to pay their mortgage, to even feed their kids, to have a successful career, a lot of times depends on you and your ability to foster their growth in their career. So if you are thinking of starting a team, that's awesome, that's great. There's not one right way to do it, but number one, identify the need. And then number two, make sure you understand the responsibility. I think if you have those two key aspects, then you'll be able to develop a structure that's going to work really well for you, and that's going to foster the success, not just for yourself and for your team, but also for the lives of the people on your team.
Those are fabulous tips for anyone that's thinking about creating a team, or even those that have a team now that are wondering how to improve the value that they provide their team members. So thank you for that. You've been teaching with Amy the Perfect Listing Presentation 2.0, and it's gotten a great response. You've done it multiple times now. So for everyone watching, what do you think are the key elements that make a listing presentation perfect?
Sure. So first, it's been awesome teaching with Amy. Her energy is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know how she does it. Maybe it's the coffee or the Peloton bike, but whatever it is, it's been a lot of fun. So, the key points of the perfect listing presentation, we talk about this in the class. Number one, it's walking in there with some sort of a structure. You have to have confidence. You have to realize that you are totally controlling the process. So you have to go in there with some process. That's the one thing we really talk about in the class. In my opinion, the most important thing is understanding the need of the client. Understand their needs, their wants, and their desires. And we get to that point by asking phenomenal questions and then shutting up and listening, and then asking even more questions, and then we shut up again and we listen. And then we're able to develop a plan that truly provides value to that client. So we really, in any listing presentation, we have to make sure that we are not getting in our own way. We're asking great questions, identifying the needs of the client. They're going to tell you what they want. They will tell you what's important to them. Then once you have that information, it's so much easier for you to provide value, and you're going to be able to do so much more confidently because you're going to actually understand what's important to them.
Thank you, Paul. I love teaching the perfect listing presentation with you too. And it is my Peloton, it is coffee, it is all things that bring my energy to you every time we teach. So, all right, I want to turn to buyers just a little bit. Sometimes we get questions surrounding either a broker that's wanting to provide a rebate or provide some sort of discount to a client. How do you handle a buyer who mentions that they might want to use a broker who is going to give a discount in the transaction?
Sure. Excellent question. I've had people on my team have issues with this. I've been lucky. I've only had a few buyers bring this up, and they brought it up in a very light way, thankfully. So I've been lucky, but we've had plenty of people on the team have this issue. First and foremost, you have to understand your personal value before you can answer this question. When they ask you this question, you have to be able to embrace it. Just like in the perfect listing presentation, we talk about when they ask about commission, right? You have to embrace that question. Same thing with this. We have to realize they may just be looking online and see something about potentially getting a rebate and a commission, and that's fine. They're inquiring about it. So if you actually understand your value and what you bring to the table, it's going to be so much easier for you to answer that question strongly and confidently, and it's going to make that whole process go a lot easier. Personally, my response has been, I love discounts too. If I'm going out there and I'm shopping for something, I'm always looking for a discount, but there's a limit to what I love discounts on. If I'm going to the doctor for an issue, I don't think I want to use a Groupon to find my doctor. That's not what I want to do. And I think when it comes time to make the largest financial decision of your life, or at least one of the largest financial decisions of your life, You probably don't want somebody who has built their business model around offering discounts. And I would say something like, I've been in the business for X amount of years. I've never once offered a rebate to any of my buyers. Yet those buyers, after they've closed, have continued to refer me clients. So I think it really says something about the value that I can bring to the table versus somebody else who is only able to bring buyers to the table because they are discounting their commission and kicking something back.
Good advice. And yes, you've been lucky because a lot of brokers encounter this quite often, depending on the market in which they work, the price point, et cetera. So thank you for that, because that dialogue there is going to be very helpful for so many. So I want to go back to how we started the episode with when you got started in real estate. With everything you know now, all the coaching, all the mentoring that you've done, and everything you've learned and built, what would you do differently and can do consistently at the beginning when you started your career?
Let's see, maybe get a degree in psychology for some of the issues with clients. I would say, the one thing I was not doing at the very beginning working with clients was being really consistent with follow-up communication after the transaction happened. I would get them a nice closing gift. I would maybe check in once, and then, a holiday card around the holidays, and that kind of was it. I never continued that personal relationship. And what I found going back and looking at where these people moved to, some of them did use me again, but a lot of them did not. And it was my fault because I was not there when they needed me. You got to look at it as if someone's driving down the road, you always want to be in their rearview mirror when it comes to them needing a real estate broker. And I simply wasn't there. So not only did I lose them and their future business, I lost any of their referral business as well. And I could be making a lot more had I done that from the very beginning. So that's the one thing I would do differently. I would actually work on cultivating those personal relationships so much more, whether we're talking about just conversations on the phone, taking people out to lunch, or just meeting them for a drink. Make them more personal friends or having a more personal connection with my clients. I'm doing that now, and I'm finding that the referrals have increased dramatically. And I really wish I would have done that from the onset. Instead, I closed the transaction and was just looking forward to the next one. And that was the wrong way to look at it.
I think that's such great advice. I think what is the verbiage? It's not their job to remember you. It's your job to make sure that they don't forget you. Yep. And I think it's a lesson that for a lot of us, we don't learn until later on in the business. So, for those newer brokers out there, it is key for sure to stay top of mind after you've closed the transaction and stay in flow. So Paul, let's fast forward to when you're ending your real estate career, or maybe it's retiring or moving on to something a little bit more exciting, although what's more exciting than selling real estate? But what do you want your colleagues, clients, and referral sources to be able to say about you?
Oh, geez, you're asking me to write my obituary here, pretty much. All right, so I guess I'll break this down into two things. One, I guess I'll talk about clients. I'll talk about, colleagues, mainly the people on my team. I don't need someone to think about me as like an awesome salesperson or something crazy like that. Like, oh, he was really slick or he was a smooth talker. The way I think about it for my clients is that I hope that when they look back at their major life transitions, either buying their first home or having a kid, needing to expand their family, or maybe something a bit negative. Maybe they were losing a job and had to sell their home, or they had to downsize. I hope that they just look back and they think that at that point in their life, that transaction, that move, they can look back and smile and know that it was as close to stress-free as possible. That they had somebody simply in their corner that they could rely on, that could just allow them to wake up in the morning and go, you know what, this is going to be a pleasant experience. Things are going to be okay. So I don't care so much what they remember about me as much as if they remember those transactions, those points in their life in a happy way because I was able to help. And, as far as people on my team go, and the people that I mentor, I would say something really similar. Like I said, I did not have that mentor when I started in the industry, and I really, really wish I did. I hope that they're able to look back and know that, they were able to go to bed at night or wake up in the morning and know that no matter what crazy client was going to call them that day, no matter what issues may come up, whether it be somebody trying to pull out of a deal or whether it be a global pandemic, that they had somebody in their corner that they could lean on and rely on to be able to continue to succeed in their career. So as cheesy as that may sound, that's what I got to say about that.
It doesn't sound cheesy at all. In fact, it sounds really impactful. So if anybody could accomplish those things and have people talk about them in that way at the end of their career, when they retire, et cetera, I think that would be really cool. So we've covered a lot of topics today. Thank you for sharing a wealth of information, tips, insights. So thank you, Paul.
No, my pleasure. It's been fun. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us, Paul.
Yes, and thank you everyone for watching and joining us today. Quick reminder, register for the Ninja Accelerator tomorrow morning, 9:30. You can register for it in the Agent app. We hope to see you then.
And remember, there's no better time than now to do it now.
3, 2, 1. And remember,
there's no better time than
now to do it now. This is what happened when you tried to do something like this before.